Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today I have a special guest with me, and we're going to be talking again about some really important issues around your money. And we're going to be talking about the relationship between food and money and what's going on with both of those during the pandemic. So, my special guest has been on the show actually twice before, but I think it's been a few years, maybe a couple years.
Probably. Okay.
Her own disastrous finances. So she began the process of changing her poverty attitude to a wealth building mindset. She specializes in personal credit repair by helping people leverage their good credit to accumulate assets so they can provide a financial legacy for their family. What a concept.
I know, huh?
Uh-huh. So welcome. Thanks for joining me again. I really appreciate your being here with us.
Thank you, Dr. Carolyn. I'm looking forward to it.
So let's just talk a little bit about, we talked about this last time, but let's just kind of catch everybody up on why do you say that how you handle your money is often the same as how you handle your food?
Wow, that's a very good question. Um, for a lot of people, money is the self-soother. And for me, money and food has been a self-soother. When I feel bad, I eat. When I feel bad, I shop. And so,
And sometimes when people feel good, they also eat and
exactly.
shop. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm in this whole process of people, I'm dating and, and now, but I'm still having those same old habits of self-soothing with money, not so much money, but with food. And especially with the pandemic, I get bored. I'm like, oh, I can just eat. And
Yeah.
so, and
Yeah,
money has that same effect.
there's not much more to do other than eat. Like how many
Exactly.
Netflix movies can you actually watch?
Exactly. And how many series can you watch and how many
Yeah.
books can you read? And so, but
Yeah.
yeah,
But
that's
do
exactly
you
it.
see that same tendency in your clients that if they are binge eaters, they are probably binge spenders too, or even
Absolutely.
binge drinkers?
Absolutely. You know what? I tell people all the time, you can tell people's habits and patterns, and I can tell just by looking at their credit report. And
Wow.
so, yeah. And so when you think about that, and when I went through my whole transformation, I had to really take a look at not just my money, but how I ate, because those are the two major factors for me when it comes to my mindset.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm in a healthy mindset, I'm eating small meals 5 or 6 times a day. I'm drinking water. I'm drinking my water 5 or 6 times a day. I'm not consuming Diet Pepsi all day. I'm not like on Amazon website all day trying to shop.
Yeah.
So I can really gauge my behavior by looking at two things in my life, by my money and by my food. And it's
Mhm.
an ongoing process. I have to be diligent every day about my food and my money.
So when you look at somebody's credit report, um, the credit report that we all get, it has that horrible number.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of to me, it's a scary place to go, the credit report. Because, there are often things that you don't even know are on there. Sometimes people who have the same name are on your credit. Anyway, when you look at that, what kind of conclusions can you draw? You said you can tell a lot about a person.
Well, sometimes people run into financial problems, from unexpected events, like they're being ill or they lost a job. But yet I can see 10, 15 years of great payment history. And then they run into this disaster. And then for some reason, they stop paying their bills and they're trying to get back to where they were. That's one part. But a lot of times, what I see is people that haven't even made consistent payments for a year, and I'll say, hey, what's going on here? What happened? So tell me how you got into the situation.
Mhm.
And it could be, a disaster, but a lot of times was, well, I had Christmas, or, I had Thanksgiving. Well, people that are managing their lives responsibly, everyone has Christmas and Thanksgiving. And we put money aside, we save money for unexpected emergencies. We're not buying PS5s or Jordans or Louis Vuitton purses. And that's what I see on people's credit reports. Or when I FaceTime a client and she's wearing all these designer clothes and she's struggling to pay her rent. That just doesn't make any sense to me.
That's a
So
big disconnect, isn't it?
is a huge disconnect.
Yeah.
So you can see I see those kinds of disconnects all the time. And the one thing I'm not, and I think that's why I'm very non-judgmental, because I was there. I've been there. And at some point you get tired of that whole cycle of lack, but yet you're still trying to fill that lack inside of you with things, and it'll never satisfy you.
And it's the same with food. You try to fill that
Oh my God.
hole inside of you with food. I'll
Exactly.
just have something really nice and tasty, and that'll make me feel better. Like you say, self-soothing. So, when I talk to clients, we often talk about that same question, which is, how did you get to where you are? Like, why did you need to come into the anchor program? And often it's the same kind of discovery, which is, either something happened to me when I was a child, or I was neglected as a child. I didn't feel seen or heard. Uh, and then I started feeling bad about myself. And usually they don't remember what it is that made them
Wow.
feel, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough. And from that, all of the other actions come about. So I'm not good enough to deserve to take care of my body. I'm not good enough. So I'm going to try to fill that hole with, good, Louis Vuitton, et
Yeah.
cetera, et cetera. I'm going to
And it's
self-soothe. And also when something happens, there's emotional dysregulation. So people have trouble regulating those feelings and those thoughts. And that's where they use food.
and it's systematic, because you may have those feelings as a kid, and if they're reinforced time and time again, and you go back to the same thing. I i was sexually assaulted when I was 20 years old,
Mm.
and I just saw my life as it was, because I was very well protected when I was growing up. My life was very structured. I played ball, I had good grades, I went to college. I had this very carefree lifestyle, but my mother was a working class woman
Mm.
providing for her kids. But it was very well structured. And then all of a sudden, I was assaulted, and I just saw everything that I knew my whole life just bottom out. And for years, I did not make the connection of my irresponsible spending, my irresponsible habits with money, my rapid weight gain. I went to playing basketball where I had probably less than, like, I don't know, 20% body fat. I was very underweight till I ballooned to 260 pounds in less than 2 years.
Oh,
And
that's
I did not make a connection that my assault was directly related to my eating habits. And I pushed it all away, because my mom says, you got to get over this. You got to be strong. And I did. I went back to work and but I was hurting inside, and I was eating my way through that pain and spending recklessly.
that's a really great description of what I see in the anchor program all the time. And what people do is just what you say. It's like, oh, I'll just pick myself up. It's over. It's in the past. I don't have to deal with this. And there's no way to get over something like that.
No.
You have to get through it. And that's what it takes.
And it's very, very difficult to and it took me 25, 30, and I knew in the back of my head that's what it was. But I'm thinking, oh no, it's been 15, it's been 20 years, it's been 25 years. It could not be related to the assault or the rape. It couldn't, and it always has been.
Yeah.
It's And when I sat down and I said, I personally got tired of living the way that I was living. unhappy, frustrated. I was working in corporate America, frustrated, you know. I was an African American woman, well spoken, highly educated, and I felt ignored. I felt that my weight was holding me back from advancing. And I was always not angry, but just so I knew I could have so much more in life. So I was always frustrated.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a frustration from the job, it was a frustration from me, my inability to attain certain things in my life, not material things, but happiness, peace, joy, satisfaction. And it all went back to my assault that I didn't go to see any counseling. I didn't even talk about it. I just pushed it down and ate my way through it and spit my way through it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I know that a lot of people listening can identify with your response to that. And even more people who are listening who have been, either abused or neglected as children, they don't even remember a lot of what happened or how they came to this place from that. But it's still all connected. It's the thing that happened that changed your view of yourself, right?
Exactly.
Did you
Exactly.
begin to feel, I mean, did the rape lead you to feel kind of out of control or more, what was the kind of thoughts that came about how you saw yourself after the rape?
Um,
Too vulnerable?
Vulnerable, and I because I shut myself down, I was very, very lonely.
Yeah.
I shut myself off from like male relationships.
Mhm.
And then I went through a period probably of early 2000 or so. I got really depressed. I don't even know where it came from. I do. I was working
I was gonna say, haven't we been
I do.
talking about that?
Yeah, I do. I worked in the insurance industry and I was working a lot of hours. I was getting really stressed out. And all those feelings sort of started coming back and I started getting really depressed. And I was talking to my mom and she didn't understand it because I suspect that she had some kind of sexual assault in her background too. So it wasn't fair for me for her to understand it because she was dealing with the same way I was. So we had these two people dysfunctional trying to deal with this major life trauma. And so I finally went to go see someone. And the great thing about therapy, it gives you a very different perspective. You get outside of your own head and those old negative thoughts. And it's a very simplistic way of looking at things. And I never forgot what she told me. She said, "You did the best that you can do at the moment."
Right.
And she said, "And now you're dealing with your mom. You need to go. Now it's time to go to another level. It's time for you to take stock of your life and go to another level and deal with those feelings. That part of your life is over." And she really made me feel better about my mom. I really saw my mom in another way because she was dealing with the same thing that I was. And I didn't give her any grace and mercy. And at that moment, I forgave my mom and I forgave myself because I just did the best that I could do. And it really started I didn't even go on medication. She wanted me to because my depression was so bad. And it really started to lift me out of a fog. And I started to take stock of my life. Where do you want to go? Where do you want to see yourself being? It wasn't overnight. It took me years.
And that's what it is. It's a process that does take years. People are always looking for a quick fix. That's why they go on diets. Well, if I just lose weight, then all that stuff will go away. But it never does.
Yes.
Well, let's get back to the money situation. So what are you seeing in your clients since the quarantine and the pandemic? What have you been seeing that they're reporting?
Fear, uncertainty. And what I tell people is your number one priority is to take care of your household. You make sure your rent is paid, your utilities are paid, your insurances are paid, your health insurance and all that. That's your priority. If you can pay your credit card debt, fine, make minimum payments. And it's a change from what I normally say. But at this point, you're not getting any help now. I
Yeah.
mean, people are standing in food lines for hours at a time. The priority is to save as much money as you can. Cover your basic living expenses, make sure your family is secure, and
And
make
reduce
sure
your spending too, right?
and watch your spending. And I think people are hopefully people are understanding that it's okay to cook every night for your family, and they have the time to do that. It's okay to spend time with your family without going anywhere and spending money. How about taking a walk together? And I hopefully people are making the shift of staying at home and just providing for your family, and don't worry about the debt and all that other stuff. You can rectify that, but it's hard to rectify that when you're worried about eviction and things are not getting paid. Take care of your basic living expenses. That's your number one priority at this point.
Yeah. It's interesting because that's what I've found myself doing as well, which is just kind of hunkering down. And I was telling you before we started the show that, I found myself getting excited about cooking again
Yeah.
rather
Yeah.
than eating. I always love to eat out. I have to admit that's one of my little things I love to do. I'm an adventurous eater. But now I'm an adventurous cooker and I'm
Yeah.
trying new recipes. I have like a stack of recipes and I'm just going through them and trying each one, and some successes, some,
Yeah.
but it's been fun.
It's been fun. I made my first Thanksgiving turkey. It was so good. I couldn't believe how good it was. I was so nervous, and it was just me,
It was you were cooking a
It was
Thanksgiving
just
turkey
me
for you.
cooking. Yeah, and I had such a good time.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what we moved away from is
Yeah.
that in the chaos of our lives pre COVID, we had DoorDash and all these places to deliver food, and we didn't really spend time with our kids. And so now it's the perfect opportunity. Instead of bemoaning the fact that we can't go anywhere, enjoy the fact that you can spend time as a family around a meal, talking about your day, getting to know your family. Our family Zoomed for Thanksgiving, and
Oh,
we all live in the same city. And it was so fun, and we were laughing so much.
yeah.
And yes, I missed the face-to-face interaction, but I'm just enjoying the fact that we can reconnect again. And I think that's the lesson that we needed to have
Yeah.
living in this COVID era.
I agree with you. I've said on numerous shows that I feel like COVID has given us a chance to really slow down and
Yes.
re-examine our priorities, because I do think so many, I have a lot of patients who are parents who have ended up having to be teachers. And so many of them have not, they normally like get their kids up, get them to school. Then after school, they go to all these events, and then they come home at night, do their homework, and go to sleep. So they're not used to really having to entertain their children for long periods of time,
Exactly.
which is very, very different from, maybe when, certainly when I was a parent, that was, I stayed at home for a couple of years with both of my kids, and you were just there all day, every day. You had to bake cookies, come up with games, take them to the park, and I think parents have really struggled with that now because they're so used to being so busy and feeling like their work is the priority, not their family. So in some ways, I think there are a lot of good things that are going to come out of the pandemic. And I hope one of them is that people will become more financially responsible. So let's just talk a little bit about the clients that you have who you see are irresponsible with their spending, and they're buying things they can't afford, and they've got a lot of excuses. How do you get them off of that track?
I let them stew in it. Like, because of your decisions, what has it cost you?
Yeah.
And a lot of them can't get refinanced. A lot of people want to buy homes for their children and to provide that legacy for them, and they just can't.
Yeah.
And not because of their credit score, it's really because of their mindset. I just had a conversation with a client today, and she has some stuff on her credit report, and she goes, well, I have to move in March, and I really want to know if I want to be able to buy a house in March. I'm thinking to myself, we're still in dealing with a repo and you're getting sued.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
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 So they're putting the cart before the horse, in other words.
And they haven't done the work.
Yeah.
Credit repair, really, when you see clients get it, fixing their credit is a manifestation of the change of mindset.
Yeah.
So credit repair should be, or like changing their finances should be down the line, because now as you sit in your financial mess, you can't get finance for a car, you're paying these high rates for insurance, you can't get a home, you're living with your mom, and you're sitting there and you're thinking, wow, what kind of choices did I make? As I allowed them, as I talked to them, and I said, well, what got you here? And they're like, well, I was spending a lot, I was eating out a lot, I wasn't fixing meals for my kids. And I let them sit in that. And you really have to, even with my eating and with my finances, I had to understand how I got to where I was. And I had to sit in my mess for a minute. And it is the most uncomfortable feeling ever. But the great thing about it is it really propelled me to make some changes in my life. And it was just small changes that I made that I was successful in. And as I started to get better and better, and I started to make more and more changes and I got better at them, my whole life changed around.
And that's the same that happens when I work with people with food and body image issues. I see the same kind of journey, the progression of, first the thought of, if I could just lose the weight, then everything will be fine. And then the dawning recognition that the years and decades of poor decisions around their health, or not being active, or whatever it has been, the pattern has cost them so much. And
Yes.
it really requires that change in mindset. So I really love the way you're talking about that. And regarding finances, I confided in you that I've gone through the same kind of thing where, I've always made a lot of money, but I've always spent a lot of money.
Me too.
And so eventually, and especially during the quarantine, I had this just like a light bulb moment. And I just decided, you know what, I'm going to spend this time paying off my credit cards. And I did something that they say never to do. I closed an account that I've had for 20 years, but it was a huge credit line. And what would happen is I'd run it up, and it was so big, I could never really pay it down.
Wow.
And so I'd always have to, either, borrow money to pay it down or whatever. So I've paid off that credit card probably 5 or 6 or 7 times, but could never keep it off. So I just decided, you know what, whatever ding I get to my credit report, I just don't want this on my plate anymore. And I paid it off and closed the account. And, when you go to close an account, they beg you to stay.
Yeah, they do.
We could increase your limit, and we could give you more, we could reduce your, and I was just like, no, don't even go there. I'm not going to listen.
Exactly.
And I just put everything out. And I think the third part is consistency and being able to maintain. So I've seen a lot of people with both credit and with food, go through something, and they get everything going and they're doing well, but they can't sustain it. Do you see that as well?
Oh yeah, in my life too. I'll see myself slip.
Yeah.
I see myself slip a lot, especially with food, where I'll have very like weeks and weeks of I'm doing well, I'm walking every day, I'm eating 5 or 6 meals a day, and then I'll slip. And I get so hard on myself when I slip. And it's not the problem that you slip. It's the problem that you don't get back on track again. You just
That's right.
beat yourself up over slipping. And I'm thinking, I have to tell myself, Francine, you are not perfect. You're going to slip every once in a while. Yeah. And that's what happens, the same thing with money. And it's so much easier for me to get back on track with my money than for me to get back on track with my food. And it's always because food has always been that like it's so easy to soothe yourself.
It's your default coping mechanism. Yeah.
My bread is just, oh my God.
Yeah.
Bread. People talk about sweets. Mine is bread.
Yeah,
And so
everybody has
it's
something. Mine,
yes,
mine is cookies, so I have to keep
mine is,
those out of the house. So
oh my God, the butter, the more butter on it, the better.
I know
Oh my
I love
gosh. And
nice
so,
slice of bread.
I just, so I have to, so I'm realizing that watching my money and watching how I eat is going to be something I have to do on a daily basis. Not that I have to be fanatical about it, I just have to be aware of it.
That's
And I'm
right. You
finding
can't go unconscious. That's what people do.
exactly.
They go unconscious, then they wake up and realize, oh my God, I'm off my wagon and I've gained whatever amount of weight, or my stomach is upset, or whatever is the problem. And that being able to be consistent takes a lot of practice and a lot of,
Really?
it does. It's really a habit. That's the secret. It's a habit. I will compare it to my credit card situation. So after I closed out that other account, I froze another two accounts.
Hmm.
And the only account I kept open was my business account. And then I put on automatic pilot all of those payments. So I didn't even have to think, do I have money to pay for this? Because it was, what do you call it?
Auto debit?
Auto debit. It was automatically debited from my account. And that's what kept me going. And that's the same kind of mindset
Wow.
that you have to use with food, where you don't think every day, am I going to have the bread or not? Am I going to eat, healthy or not? Am I going to go for a walk or not? You don't question it. It's like it's on your calendar, so you're going to do it. And the
Wow.
same with meal planning. Like now that I'm cooking, I know what I'm going to eat because I have leftovers from this and I have chicken from last night. And so I just wake up in the morning and I know, okay, well, for breakfast, I'm going to have eggs. For lunch, I'm going to have leftovers. For dinner, I'm going to do this.
That's awesome you said that, because I remember there was a time I was really into meal preparation every Sunday night. I would take 3 hours and I would make all these meals and I put them in my little containers and
Yeah,
prepare everything, prepare my breakfasts and everything. And I did this for like, a good part of 8 months. And people are like, what are you doing? Why are you losing so much weight? I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm not losing weight. I'm just, I didn't even realize. And it was like the auto debit of food, the meal
that's
preparation.
exactly right. It's
Oh my gosh.
because what people get caught up in is what you described. Something happens, like maybe you have a little stressful day and you fall off the bandwagon, and then you, instead of going back on autopilot, you start feeling bad about it. So the first thing is you feel bad because you fell off the bandwagon, and then you feel bad, so you have to self-soothe with food,
Yes.
and then you feel bad about self-soothing with food. It's called the vicious cycle. So you have to I call it building exits off the freeway. Because, when we drive, like if I were to drive to your house every day for a year, I would probably use the same road.
Yeah.
And that's the road you get on when you fall off. So you have
Yeah.
to build exits off the freeway by using your skills to get back on autopilot.
Wow. That was a revelation. Yeah, and God, that's huge.
Yeah.
Because for me, paying bills, putting money, like to me, it's automatic putting money in my savings account.
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
it
it's
should it
just,
should be automatic going to exercise. It should be
yeah,
automatic that you
yes,
plan what you eat.
yes. And I haven't made that connection yet with food yet. And that was such a revelation to me, because it's still my old food is always going to be my like husband, because I'm single. It's all, I treated food like my husband. I get
Yeah.
all my satisfaction from food.
But
And
maybe if you went on autopilot with food, you could get a real husband. That's what you said. You said you're dating.
yeah,
Maybe
I
you
felt
could,
like I'm dating and I have to like break up with food, but keep it
yes,
it's in its proper place.
that's right. You have to break up with food because food is not your husband. And the sooner you acknowledge that,
Wow.
the easier it will be. Like for me, I'm not very good at exercising on my own. So I just accepted that some years ago. I accepted it. And I just signed up with a personal trainer. And for 3 years until I was sick this year with COVID, I would go to personal training twice a week. And I never stopped to think, oh, do I have time to go? Oh, am I too busy at work? No, it's on my calendar. I showed up whether I wanted to or not. One day a week, I'd go to Pilates, whether I wanted to or not. And I never questioned it. And that is the healthiest I've ever been. And I never even worried about my weight because I was so fit and energetic from doing
Yes,
that. And,
I
people say,
remember.
well, it costs a lot of money. Yeah, it cost me a hell of a lot of money, but it was a great investment for me.
Yes, like when I was doing the meal prep, it was so much time, but I never had so much energy because when I was meal prepping, of course I'm gonna prep a bunch of vegetables and and lean foods, and I mean I didn't even worry about carbs or trying to cut carbs. I just used them sparingly, and I just had this energy and my blood pressure plummeted. I remember going to the dentist and she took my blood pressure before I had a root canal. And she goes, "Oh my gosh, you've never been," it was like 110/68.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I'm thinking, wow, really?
Yeah.
And so my doctor was like, "I don't know what you're doing, but you need to keep doing it." And I don't know what got me off track. I think it was just not, I don't think it was anything big. I just think it was a small stressor in a day. And then I moved one step away from it. I kept stepping away from it.
Yeah. Because
That
once
was
you move that one step away, then your mind starts to think, oh, should I go back to that? Oh, should I keep doing that? Oh, should I eat this donut again? Why not have another donut? It tastes so good.
yes.
And that's where, when your mind gets involved, that's where everything gets screwed up. People think that their minds are helping them with, food and body image issues, but your mind is your worst enemy.
Yes.
Autopilot is your friend.
Yes. Especially when you've always had negative mindset patterns.
Correct.
Oh, you'll never get anything because you're too big. You couldn't advance in your job because whatever. They don't appreciate it. Was just, they were always telling me these little stories and I always bought into them. And you're right. That negative mindset will always, always sabotage your efforts.
And that's what I read that you said in your bio, that you were able to change from a poverty mindset. Well, that poverty mindset applies to eating as well, because it's kind of like, oh, I haven't had that donut for a long time. I haven't had that
Yes.
slice of bread for so long. And you forget that you can have bread anytime you want. There's
And I
no
did.
there's no contraindication for bread. The only contraindication is using bread as your husband.
Yes. Yes. And when you're on autopilot, you just eat the food that you have, which was very, very good. I didn't even think about bread or an
Yeah,
excessive amount of carbs. And I had just enough. And I was so satisfied on
right.
that whole autopilot kind of eating. I didn't
Correct.
even realize I had dropped 50 pounds, and I knew my clothes were I was starting to feel it in my clothes, but I still didn't even think about it. I was just making my food
Because
every
you
Sunday.
because you really don't. That's the difference in the mindset shift. Because and I talk about this all the time in the anchor program, when your focus is on the number on the scale, you can never win, because that number is going to fluctuate up and down. I mean, if you weighed yourself every day for a year, you would see that that number will go up 2 or 3 pounds. It'll go up 2 or 3 pounds some days. It'll go down 2 or 3 pounds
Yes.
other days. And sometimes, it'll go down even more. But what I learned, because I always tell this story, when my scale broke, and then I went to the doctor and realized I had, lost weight and I hadn't even been trying. I realized that when I saw that number on the scale and it had gone down, then my mind went into overdrive. Well, what did I do to make it go down? How do I keep it going
Yes.
down? And all of that just puts you back in that vicious cycle, the diet mentality. So the change in the mindset is taking your focus off the number on the scale. In a way, it's like taking your focus off the credit number too. That the credit bureau number is very intimidating
That's so good, because I tell my clients it's not about the FICO score.
Yeah,
It's
the
what's
FICO
on.
score.
Yeah, it's not about the FICO score. It's what's actually on your credit report. The FICO score is just like, that's just a mathematical algorithm.
Yes.
What the real underwriting, when I look at someone's credit reports, I can just look at your behaviors that whole time.
Yeah.
So that's really
So that's
good.
exactly the same. So the number on the scale is a metabolic algorithm. It takes in the number you see on the scale involves like how your blood pressure is that day, how much fluid you're retaining, how fast your metabolism is, how your liver is functioning. It's a metabolic algorithm, but it's not the answer. And so I think it's very, very similar to how you described the FICO score.
It is. Wow. What
Yeah.
a revelation today.
Oh my goodness, you're funny. Anyway, we should get on with our lives now, but it's been great talking to you, Francine Rogers. And I'll just let everybody know, I'll put contact information for Francine if you're interested in working with her. She's great, as you can see, in the show notes below. And so please feel free to check in with her and get your money in order. I want to remind everybody we do have an anchor program starting soon, and the anchor program is a 12-week non-diet program for people with binge eating, emotional eating, and food addiction. It's been fun talking to you, Francine. I'll see you
Oh,
next
thank you
time.
so much. You helped me a lot. So I do have a Facebook group, Purposeful Credit Solutions. I invite anyone to join. I always post all kinds of things about personal finance and credit repair. So I invite you to join. Thank you
Okay.
so much, Dr. Carolyn. It has been, oh my God, it's been eye-opening. I
Oh,
can't wait
and
to see
ditto.
the
All
podcast again.
right. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, I'll talk to you later.